The Construct Cast is made possible by viewers like you. Please visit us at commutationconstruct.locals.com. Memberships are free to start with coupon code CCFREE. Hello and welcome back to the Construct Cast. My name is James Darian and it is a pleasure to be here with you once again. This is our first video of the new year, 2021, and yeah, it has been quite the start of a new year, to say the least of things. I believe it has been. We've had a little bit of a break, and things have been going kind of crazy in the news. But today we're going to be having a conversation. I posted about this in a couple communities on Locals, and again, you can follow me there at commutationconstruct.locals.com. Long name, I know. But anyhow, yeah. Just trying to get back in the flow of things, and I do have a topic for today. I just want to kind of break some ice a little bit. Things have been kind of crazy since last month for me, so I just want to say I am back. I will be producing my regular content again. That means we're going to be doing the speech spotlights. We're going to be doing the Federalist and Anti-Federalist papers, read-throughs, and we're going to be going through casual conversations like the ones we have today, just kind of talking about ideas, talking about things we think are good or bad, or just things that need to be fixed in the world. Today, I'm feeling a little more casual. I'm wearing my jacket and a t-shirt and got my necklace. I look like I'm straight out of some like 60s movie. I look like I'm from Greece. So I promise to not start singing. I don't think you guys would want to hear that, but yeah, let's hop into it. So today I wanted to discuss how grandfathering works within legal terms for the way we understand it here in the U.S. because we have precedent where the government cannot create laws that apply retroactively. If you smoked weed one week and it was made illegal the next week, you could not be charged for smoking weed back when it was legal. Yet when we look at services online, when we look at things like terms of use especially, and all these other types of updated service policies from content hosts and everywhere with digital services, it really seems like grandfathering just does not exist. Typically, if terms are changed, there is an immediate there can be an immediate fallout and an immediate reaction. You might suddenly in one day get on YouTube, get multiple videos striked or copyright, or something could happen where you get in trouble for things you did back at a time when they were perfectly fine. You're not really given a heads up too much about the new terms. Like sometimes they'll tell you like, oh, this is gonna go into effect in a few weeks or something like that. And it's good when they give you the heads up, but realistically, they can change the terms of service at any time, and they can choose to enforce or not enforce certain things as they see fit. It's really there's a lot of subjectivity, and it's a one-way contract. So I feel like there's a lot of there's a lot of what's the phrase I'm looking for? There's a lot to discuss with this because comparing the private expression of the businesses doing this versus the government. If you want to look at the government as a type of business, you would say that the citizens of that business are the state of the country, are the stakeholders. Stakeholders in terms of business will be anyone who has an interest in the well-being of the business, be it customers. Customers want business to do well. That way they can get the better product, the product that the business offers in its best form, and possibly for the best price. You have investors. Obviously, they have a stake in the business, very literally, in terms of a financial stake. You have employees who their careers literally depend on it. So you have all these people who are invested as stakeholders. With a country, the stakeholders with a government specifically, I should say, a country and government are not necessarily the same things. So with a government, the stakeholders, of course, are going to be the people operating within the government, and they're going to be the citizens of the country. And I can go into more detail about my thoughts on this structure later. But but looking at just this aspect of it right now, we can see that the government, it has a bit of a responsibility to the people, but there's also the fact that as stakeholders, we're closer to investors than we are to customers in regards to the government, because as citizens, we are able to vote for our representatives, at least within the U.S. structure. Within other countries, I mean, they may have dictatorships, they may have yada, 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 other things, and no democracy whatsoever. They may have monarchies wherever they are. I mean, it can be anything. But the point is, with our government, we have the ability to influence how laws go into effect, yada, yada, yada. When we have elections, we vote on laws that we want to be passed and whatnot. And of course, there are laws that our government passes simply as being the representatives of us. So they're representing us, so they make the decisions for us. But we at least had the say in giving them the power to do that. Whereas with companies as customers, we tend to have a lot less power, though in one sense we are both consumers while at the same time we are producers for them. So all at once, with social media sites especially, we are both the consumers consuming media, but we're also creating media. And you don't need to be making YouTube videos to be doing that. If you leave a comment on a YouTube video, you give it the like. You go to Facebook or Twitter and you post comments. You retweet things. You are sharing more of the content that way. So in that sense, everyone who uses these platforms is both sort of like an employee and also sort of like a consumer. But though very indirectly, it's like your contract worker. And this relationship definitely, it gives very little power. Let me correct this. It gives little control to the consumers, to the creators and consumers. It gives them power in the sense that the company will relinquish power at any time as it chooses to give, but it also, the companies, and you can see this with how they change their terms of service, they're able to take back that power at any time. They're able to change what that is, and it basically means there are no standards because the standards can change at any time. So everything is at a whim. Everything is at the discretion of the company, as well as their own willingness to enforce whatever their policies are. This is a bit of a problem as I see it. I believe that going forward at some point in time, we're going to need to create a form of grandfathering for these types of policies, because the fact is, at this point, the internet has evolved to a stage where people are making their entire livelihoods on the internet. I am here making very little of a livelihood, but something of a livelihood, at least to a small extent, using my website, using my videos, my written content, and my own productions. I do some investment in it and put my time and effort to try to do this promotion and whatnot. So again, there's more and more buy-in as we spend more time with these things. There's more and more effort that's required, and it becomes the market. That's the thing about social media. Social media is not a product; it is a market. In a sense, it's a product, but but I don't think that's a good way to look at it. And when we look at the way the government works, the government is also kind of operating on a market type scale, because the government's rules are essentially the rules for the society. Well, online, when you are on a platform, that platform's rules are the rules for the society of that platform, because each platform is almost its own ecosystem. It's its own society. People can create their own businesses on it. They can do this and that. They can promote themselves. They might just use it for dating. They might use it for something else. They might use it for gags with friends. They might use it for groups, for work, whatever. So there are so many different aspects to it that the, what's the word I'm looking for? Fungibility? No, I don't think that's the word. Maybe it is. But that the way the system can be so easily and one-sided molded on one side, that creates a tense situation. And it can be a very highly stressful situation for users, because one, the terms are typically so long, you're not really going to get a high proportion of people at all reading it, and that's a bit of a problem. They kind of take the terms in good faith, which in a government, that's more or less okay to take some amount of, well, you should scrutinize governments and their policies and what they're doing. There is an amount of good faith that is given as you are hosted by a representative. There is no real representative for you with these social media markets. And while I don't like the idea of treating private businesses like a government, I do treat government like a private business in a lot of ways. Because there's clear aspects where the government wants to grow, where it makes decisions that are in specifically the government's best interest, many times in the short-term best interest, because elected officials only ever have a guarantee of short-term of their short-term placement within the government, and because they're in these official positions, they have access to many other backup locations if they end up somewhere else. So they could easily go into media, easily write a book, and get at least some thousands of guaranteed sales from it, or tens of thousands, even hundreds, depending on their popularity, depending on their district, if they're popular in their district. Even with a lowish approval rating, you're still going to be able to get something from that. So there's a lot of there's a lot of potential sources for revenue if you're a government leader. But anyhow, let me get back on track with this. The issue with there's a lot of issues with the way in which the rules are almost unstable. And the tension that this creates for the people who are on these platforms, within these ecosystems, there is an issue that things can change at any time. And for me, I see the simplest way of correcting this to be to implement grandfathering, though I would love to discuss alternative ideas with you guys about what could be done, because I'm not a big regulation person. I don't like when the government puts restrictions or forces companies to do things, because I believe that tends to create more costs, more barriers to entry, and it ends up almost securing monopolies within industries. And when you have these, when you have either industries that are entirely self-regulated, wherein the government comes in, makes some heavy rules, and then they say, okay, you get to make like a council or something that will define the rules of your industry. You can have things like the credit card industry where basically if you're not Visa or MasterCard, or you're going to have a very hard time breaking into that industry. Like American Express can do stuff, and there's a few of them, but for the most part, you're not going to see too many competitors with this. And there's a limit to payment processing too, where you have to go through these companies' rules. You have to be accepted by what they want. So, relating this to more social media industries, more digital technology industries, it would be dangerous to leave it up to, say, for the government to maybe they will make a regulation and then they'll say, Twitter, Facebook, pick some people and we're going to have that you guys create a board that will regulate this industry. That would be the absolute worst case scenario, because those boards will force every single competitor of theirs to have algorithms to deliver content. They would force them to or very likely force them to be very censorious with what's allowed. It wouldn't just be legal speech. They would definitely add rules and other types of controls on it, essentially. And that could, one, be costly, and two, be very limiting to potential products, and very limiting to the speech that is allowed on the platforms. I see a lot of a risk, essentially, in where we are, is what I'm saying. The idea of the principles that found the government being a part of society, well, the government comes from the society. The society isn't really supposed to come from the government. To an extent, if the society changes, it makes sense that the government would change with it. That's why we see so many politicians calling for things to end free speech, calling to say that hate speech is not free speech, stuff like that. At the same time, we have these situations where we need to, as a society, enforce the same beliefs that we structure our government around. We need to ensure the longevity of our society in this way, because of that's kind of the tension in the U.S. right now, is that there's definitely been people playing in the game that are trying to pull the society in different ways. Influencers all over the place are trying to turn the U.S. society into what they believe the U.S. society should be in its ideal state. And some people don't even believe in the U.S. society and believe it should be something completely different. And they're all pulling away at it in different directions. That's how I see it going about. So the founding principles of a society that tend to only be written within the legal framework of defining the Constitution and how the founding papers design and limit the government, it's important to apply those within a private setting. Because if you're not applying them in that way, even if not legally bound to do so, you should do it. But so even if not legally bound to do so, you should still apply these principles towards, in general, towards the private sector and towards the society at large, because you want the society to be able to have these conversations and to be able to maintain their principles. Because if a society loses its principles, then you start getting to the point where who's determining what the new principles are? You're having, all right, we determine this principle's gone. Okay, now we've got these two other ones that are completely diametrically opposed to each other trying to take its place. That could be the type of situation that we get in. So for that reason, I do think it's important that we keep this, that we do enforce these principles. And I think to do that, we need to take a very legal approach to our businesses. Not in the sense that we need to control what they do, but in the sense that we need to control their ability to really just I'm not going to say change on a dime, but it needs to follow the same legal standard for how we go about our systems. So essentially, we have the idea of grandfathering that I mentioned. We design our government in a way where you cannot charge people for breaking laws before those laws are made. Likewise, we should have grandfathering in our businesses, where when you have signed a contract for a product, you still have access to the features of that product before the rules may be changed. Additionally, you could. I don't really like the idea of giving more control to the people of the businesses, to the customers with the businesses, or even the people who necessarily are hosts on a platform. I think, and it may not be possible to do this. It would be nice if there could be a saved iteration of every stage of the life cycle of a business, so that someone who doesn't want to update the terms can just use that old version and act off of that. And that would be my ideal for the way the internet would work. Maybe just have backup servers, essentially. And I mean, it wouldn't really work for very many people, because then you're going to have everyone on all these different systems, and the people in 1.0 aren't going to be talking to people in 2.0 or 2.5 regarding things like updates. Like, there would end up becoming content that can only be accessed in separate at separate levels. So that could be an issue, but at the same time, it feels like there needs to be a way for, even if you can't re-access the original, there needs to be protection for what was created during those original terms. It also seems to me that there should be a process about updating terms of services, because where it currently stands as a one-sided contract, it is very much you want to get on our platform, you must accept all this, and this, and we have the right to change this at any time. Imagine if our government could change our constitution with a simple 51% vote at any time. I mean, basically every time a different party gets in power, your entire constitution is going to get rewritten. So at that point, you wouldn't really have a constitution. That's almost what it feels like here, because once it becomes, with a simple majority, in the interest of the business to change their terms of service in one direction, they can just do it. And they are likely to do it because they have the ability and the free will to do it. They have the control for that. So I'm not sure if there can be a system wherein I'm trying to think of a way for there to be a system where a business can be, I don't want to say slowed down, because if you say slowed down, it makes it feel like you're hampering the business. But so I don't feel like that's the right framing for it. But a way in which the contract isn't able to be just changed like that. To me, it seems that it is necessary for the multiple parties in the contract to be able to negotiate on the terms of the contract. Now, when you are making the contract for an entire market, in the way that Facebook, Twitter, locals, for that matter. I mean, I'm using locals. They've updated some of their terms like 2 or 3 times in the past month and a half. Apparently, there's not going to be any more free networks. I think that's in order to mitigate issues with Amazon's web services. But there's definitely this there's a sense that things always change and that there is a risk associated with it. You have to have a lot of trust in the networks, in the system, in the private companies, that they will always have your best interest at heart and that they will act in good faith with you. Now, there were issues with Instagram recently updating their terms. I think they did it last month, where essentially they basically claim control of your entire phone, all the accounts you have on your phone, and your camera, microphone, all that. They can basically turn on your camera at any time and click record, which that's not creepy at all. No, it's totally creepy. But but yeah, like I don't even think there was a real notification for that. I think they sent out an email to like notify users, but you accepted in their new terms. It basically said that you accepted the terms just by logging on to Instagram. So if you logged on just to delete your account, you accepted the terms before you deleted your account. Like it's kind of crazy what they can do with their terms of service these days, because it's just so universal and powerful, the absolute control that these companies are given with it, that it seems to me that there needs to be some sort of a vetting process publicly when you are operating a market. And I think calling it a market is a much better way of approaching it than the publisher platform argument, because yes, they are a platform, but they're a platform at the same time that they're a product. And I think thinking of them as a market gives it a lot more of a it gives it much more of a sense of, okay, we're working within the scope of what is provided here. There's a rule set that must be followed, but there's also some amount of influence we necessarily have in how that rule set should, maybe not necessarily we have control in how the rule set gets formed, but we have control what we can do within the rule set. Yeah, I'm just kind of trying to wrap my mind around this idea, because it's a complicated issue. There's so many different ways to approach it from it, and I am really rusty coming back to do these construct casts with you guys. So I apologize. It's just been a little while, and I am gonna more and more get in the flow of things. I've got like another 5 videos pulled up on my phone that I'm just getting ready to rev up and do. But yeah, this is the big topic that's been on my mind lately, because I think this is going to be probably one of the most relevant discussions that we have for a while. This is going to be very relevant both politically and socially over the next few years. And and this also crosses into things like patent laws, how Google's business is really patents, because they make a ton of patents so that no one can compete with them. Like they will patent technologies that are within the fields that Alphabet has, the Alphabet operates within. So like they have a contract where they may be buying BitFit, or technically they did buy BitFit, but they're also being investigated as a monopoly. So they might not be allowed to fully do that or something. I don't know. I haven't looked too much into that, but there's all these little, or not little, but there's all these different areas that a company like Google is involved in, and they will patent off their competition, most of their competition. And if their competition is too good, they'll buy them out. Because they're big enough to be able to do that. And I don't necessarily have a problem with businesses buying out other businesses, but at the same time I do. So that's a discussion for another day, and I'll get into that then. So the topics of buying out other businesses, as well as patents, because patents are really interesting, because they can give these companies just guaranteed control. They can block so much competition just by saying, okay, well, I see all these alternative ways to do this. I'm gonna patent all these other alternative ways to create these search functions, to create these whatever kind of algorithms they create or hardwares they create. They just patent all these different ones, and with each one they do, that's one less way that a competitor can rise up to challenge them. So there is a lot of there's a lot of crazy stuff that goes on with the way these big tech companies are operating, and I hope that this conversation has given you guys something to think about. There's still a lot for me to think about myself personally, and yeah, that's been it. Anyhow, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you liked it, hit that like button. You know what to do. If you dislike it, I mean, I'm fine with that too. And leave a comment. Tell me I'm an idiot. Tell me you agree with me if you do, and tell me your ideas. I always want to hear that below. You can follow me here on YouTube, Bitchute, Locals, wherever you're listening to me on. Again, this is ConstructCast on Locals, Bitchute, James Darian on Minds, and Gab at Commutation C on Twitter, which I'm trying to. I'm kind of using Twitter more, but also trying to use it less at the same time. I don't know. It's such a web, but it's kind of funny at the same time. I don't know. But the main place you're going to find me is locals.com, commutationconstruct.locals.com. That's my website. It is free to use with coupon code CCFree. I've got it pinned to the top there, so you should be able to see that right after you follow me for the first time. And with that coupon code, you get full access to everything that I post. You can leave a comment, do whatever. It's a 12-month code, and I'm gonna make more. So like, you guys are really not gonna have to worry about paying if you don't want to. So if you just want to get onto my private network to tell me I'm an idiot, you can do that too. I'm fine with that. It's all good. But yeah, I hope to see you there. I hope to see you down in the comments below. It's been a pleasure. All right, I'm James Darian. I will see you guys later. Peace.